Going back on the record, the time is 10:10 a.m.
Joe, before we go forward, I think the witness has a couple of things he wants to correct about previous testimony.
Yeah, there were two things. Apparently, LLR Inc. does have a board of directors. It's Deanne and myself. I was thinking of the LLC, but apparently the Inc. does have that board. And then the other one was whether or not we had gone to Europe on business. And yeah, actually we have taken trips to Europe scouting fashion. Milan, Romania, and
Milan, I understand. Romania as a fashion?
oh yeah, Bucharest.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
I obviously don't know what anything about fashion, but okay. Thank you for those clarifications. Before the break, we were talking about the growth of the metrics around IFR growth. I'd like to turn to the other metrics, retail sales and wholesale sales. And I understand LuLaRoe has experienced tremendous growth, so I'm just trying to get a sense of that. In 2013, roughly what were the retail and wholesale sales?
So in 2013, I did not have any tracking on retail sales. Wholesale sales were roughly $3 million.
Did you, were attempts made to track retail sales and they're just unsuccessful?
You know, in 2013, I don't think we were really paying close attention to retail sales as a specific for tracking, because the company was very, very small and we knew all of the IFRs, and so we were having conversations about their business and their success and what they were doing. But we weren't overly concerned with tracking retail sales, you know, at that time.
And roughly how many IFRs were there?
Well, starting with 0 and then going to, I would say by the end of the year, possibly 150 to 200. And again, I'm going to tell you right now, that's a guess. That's just shooting from the hip. Okay?
Understood. For the number of IFRs, is the wholesale sales, the 3 million, is that similarly a guess? Or?
No, the 3 million's pretty close.
Okay, good. Okay, 2014, what were the retail sales and wholesale sales?
Again, in 2014, not tracking retail sales accurately yet. Wholesale, 9.6 million.
And best guess as to the number of IFRs?
Now you're really pushing me to guess. I would say maybe 1,000.
Turning to 2015, what were the retail sales and wholesale sales?
Again, very little visibility on retail. Wholesale sales of, I believe it was 73 million. Anthony, would you pour some water for me?
And in 2015, you said limited visibility into retail sales. Were any attempts made to try and track retail sales in either 2014 or 2015?
I'm not sure exactly when the efforts started, but in 2015, definitely we were making efforts.
Turning back to 2015, we left off with wholesale at about 73 million. Best guess as to how many IFRs in 2015?
I would prefer not to make a best guess.
Okay.
I don't really even have much of a clue on where we were there.
Okay, understood. 2016, what were LuLaRoe's retail and wholesale sales?
2016. I don't have retail off of the top of my head. I don't think we had great visibility into that. Wholesale sales were around $1.2 billion.
Do you feel comfortable guessing as to the number of IFRs in 2016? It's okay if you don't?
No.
Okay. Moving along to 2017, what were LuLaRoe's retail sales and wholesale sales?
Again, I don't have retail readily off the top of my head. Wholesale close to 1.6 billion.
And you say you don't have it available. Is it because, like the earlier years, it wasn't tracked, or you just can't recall right now?
No, I just can't recall right now. I have reports that I look at. If I need, when I'm looking for it, I have readily available reports.
So beginning in 2017, the company was able to have more visibility into retail sales?
Mid 2017.
And what happened, what solution became available in mid-2017 that allowed you to
That's where
have
we implemented the retail success programs and the system that we're currently operating.
In 2017, do you have a guess as to how many IFRs there were?
Yeah, that one I do know, because that's where we hit, I think, probably close to our peak, and it was around 90,000. Would be my best estimate of it.
So when you say you hit the peak, was that the peak of the number of IFRs?
It was the peak of wholesale sales, it was the peak of retail sales, it was the peak of IFRs.
In 2018, what were the retail sales, wholesale sales, and IFRs?
In 2018, again, I don't recall retail off the top of my head. Wholesale was 500 million.
And I recognize that 2019 isn't quite done, but what so far are the retail sales, wholesale sales, and IFR numbers for this year?
Again, I'm not as facile with retail. Wholesale sales are probably going to end the year at 340, maybe.
340,000?
340 million.
340 million?
Yeah.
Got it.
And active IFRs is about 18,000 right now.
You mentioned you had a correction about the board members on the LLR. Does the LLR board have board meetings?
I guess we do. Yeah.
How frequently?
I don't know.
When was the last one?
Again, I don't know.
It sounds like it was not a formal process, but are there minutes or meetings or meeting minutes or agendas, documentation related to the board meetings?
Again, I'm just going to have to say I don't know. There may be, we may have had meetings where minutes were kept. I don't have a recollection.
So you said that you and Deanne are on the board. Who would have kept, if those documents exist, who would have had them?
Again, don't know.
I've seen references in some of the documentation to exec meetings. Who comprises, is there an exec team?
Yes.
And who's on the exec team?
That would be Art McCracken, Noel Knighton, John West, Guillermo Lopez, Lauren Simpson, that would be what I consider to be the executive team. And in those meetings, in attendance, and obviously Deanne and myself.
Yeah. And how,
Oftentimes in those meetings, general counsel can be present, and sometimes other members of the sales or marketing teams or compliance.
and is there a standing or recurring meeting, exec meeting? Is it called ad hoc? How does
Yeah,
that
we just
work?
call it the executive meeting,
And how frequently does it happen?
weekly.
Do you, as CEO / president, do you have other recurring meetings?
No, not scheduled recurring meetings.
Earlier we talked about your compensation as being salary without a bonus component. For the execs, are they all salaried?
Yes.
Do any of them receive bonuses tied to company performance or?
In past years, bonuses have been paid. The last 2 years, no.
Okay. And what was the metric by which the bonuses were calculated 2 years ago?
What I thought was fair.
What factors did you consider kind of in determining that?
Objectives vague. If you want to identify an individual and a particular bonus in a particular year.
I considered overall team performance, and I considered company performance and profitability.
And mechanically or administratively, how are you paid by LuLaRoe? Do you receive a check, direct deposit?
Direct deposit.
Okay. And what bank do you use?
Objection. What's the relevance of what his personal bank is? How does that relate to the claims that the state has brought?
We believe it goes to restitution, potentially.
That's a post-judgment thing. If we need, if we need secondary proceedings, if the state obtains a judgment and defendants are incapable of paying, then you can go into that, supplemental proceedings and the like. But I don't want his personal bank accounts noted here.
Are you instructing him not to answer?
You need to give me some relevance to that. I mean, you need to conduct this deposition targeting discovery that's relevant to your claims. So if you can't articulate it, then yes, I'll seek a protective order on that.
So are you instructing him not to identify the bank that he uses?
Are you going to give me an explanation for how that is something that's fairly in the purview of discovery?
I believe I have, but we obviously disagree. So I just want the record to be clear whether or not he's being instructed not to answer.
So I want the record to be clear that under the civil rules, specifically Civil Rule 30H, you are not to ask questions that are clearly beyond the scope of the claims that the state has brought. This is not within the scope of any of the elements of the claim that the state has brought. If your only justification is potential supplemental collection issues, that's for supplemental proceedings. So it's an improper question.
All I want to know is if you're instructing a witness not to answer.
If you're persisting on a question that operates in violation of CR 30H, then I will get the judge on the phone. If you want to move on, we can move on.
I will move on, although I anticipate we will come back to this. What's that? Okay, we'll start that process at the break. Do you receive any compensation under the leadership bonus plan?
Object, ask, and answer.
No.
I would also request that only counsel of record make objections at today's deposition, if that's,
We can do that. All
thank
right.
you.
I can just poke him then.
Yeah,
that's fine.
exactly.
I'm going to object as asked and answered.
So you mentioned that, I believe it's Mr. Simpson, Lauren Simpson,
Yes.
is Chief of Sales and Marketing. How long has he had that role?
Probably about 3 months.
Who was his predecessor?
Justin Lyon.
And how long did Mr. Lyon hold that position?
Probably since its inception, but I don't know the exact timing on that, but for a couple of years at least.
And who held that position before Mr. Lyon?
There was not a position before that.
Regardless of whether or not the position existed, who was responsible for marketing issues prior to Mr. Lyon?
So Mr. Lyon was responsible from the time he came on board, which was in probably 2013.
Got it. Okay. How long has LuLaRoe had a legal department?
Object to the form.
I don't know that we do have a legal department. We have counsel that we've retained, and we've had counsel from the very beginning.
And how long has LuLaRoe had a compliance department?
Again, basically from the very beginning, there have been elements of compliance.
And I believe currently it's Mr. Austin Stidham who handles compliance?
Yes.
Has he had that role since the beginning?
The best of my recollection, I'll say yes. You know, just for clarification as to why I'm saying the best of my recollection, as the business started, it was small, entrepreneurial, and many people wore many hats. A lot of things got done, and then people began to migrate into roles where they had more competence or more ability.
And drilling down a little bit in the marketing and compliance divisions, how many people does Mr. Lyon in marketing manage, roughly?
That objection vague as to time. It's Mr. Simpson in that role now.
That's a fair point. So why don't we talk about now first?
You know, again, I don't know. I'm going to say that there's probably 20 to 30 people in that department. Don't have the exact org chart in my mind.
Is there an org chart that covers all of LuLaRoe?
No.
Okay.
Or maybe. Let me go back. Maybe HR may have a complete org chart.
In 2016, 2017 timeframe, what was the size of the marketing department?
I don't know.
Turning to compliance, roughly how many people does Austin Stidham manage now?
I believe that he has probably about 5.
In 2016, 2017 timeframe, roughly how many people did he manage?
No idea.
For the compensation team, roughly how large is that team now?
I'm not sure what you mean by the compensation team.
Sorry, let me check back on my notes. Is there a compensation team?
I don't believe there's a compensation team.
Okay. I've seen reference to something called compensation team, T period E period A period M. What is that?
Again, I don't know what the I don't know what a compensation team would be. If there's somebody referring to it that way, and it may be. Well, never mind. I'm not going to tell you what it may be because I don't know.
Okay. I've also seen reference to something called comp calculations at LuLaRoe.com. What is that email address?
I believe that would be for somebody who is wondering how their compensation check was calculated, that they would send a question there.
And so those would be, so who would be at the company, who would be responding to emails sent to that address?
Somebody in customer service.
And who manages customer service?
Each department has customer service elements. We don't have a central customer service.
So that's compensation to IFRs. Who in the company deals with compensation to internally IFR employees?
Could you reread that, please?
So that's compensation to IFRs. Who in the company deals with compensation to internally IFRs?
Oh, okay. So I did not ask that question correctly. Who at the company handles LuLaRoe employee compensation?
We have an HR department.
And who within the HR department handles LuLaRoe compensation?
I would need clarification regarding whom. At the executive level, there's different input than there is in the, for instance, a hire in the warehouse.
So at the exec level, who
At the
handles
exec
that?
level would be Noel Knighton, the CFO, and Deanne and I.
And sort of, for lack of a better phrase, for rank and file, who handles those employees?
I don't really know how that process works.
I've seen reference to technical team, T period E period A period M. Is that a reference to LuLaRoe's IT department?
Most likely.
And how big is that team?
I don't know.
And I assume you would not know how big that team was in 2016 or 2017.
No.
Is there a damages department?
I believe there is.
And who manages that department?
Again, I don't know who manages it.
Do you know the size of that department? But that department deals with damaged products from the IFRs perspective?
Yes.
Okay. Do they also deal with damaged product that LuLaRoe receives but doesn't send on to IFRs?
Yes.
So it's the same department that handles both?
I'm not positive. I know that people handle both of those functions, but I don't know if they're under the same management.
We've talked a lot about LuLaRoe's employees. I want to talk a little bit about consultants and vendors. So currently, who supplies LuLaRoe product?
We have multiple vendors.
Turning to a different vendor, Service Quest. What is Service Quest, and assuming they were a vendor, when did they provide service to LuLaRoe?
Service Quest provided services starting in probably around August of 2013. And I don't recall the exact time frame that their services were suspended.
You say services were suspended. Were they
Canceled.
Oh, canceled.
Yes.
So they were canceled
Yes.
prior to, I guess, the terms of the contract. Is that what you're saying?
No.
So would it be fair to say they expired pursuant to the contract?
I don't believe that the contract had a time frame.
Got it. Okay. And what services did they provide?
They provided consulting services relevant to the network marketing industry, compliance guidelines, policies and procedure guidelines, compensation plan guidelines, some limited legal services around sales tax structure and compliance, and some general trade and FTC guideline issues.
Trying to unpack that a little bit. When you say network marketing, the network marketing industry, is that also referred to as multi-level marketing?
It can be, yes.
Can you explain to the court what multi-level marketing is?
Check to the form.
I mean, I can, but it's irrelevant to our business. I mean, would you like me to explain it?
Well, so you do not consider LuLaRoe a multi-level marketer?
Absolutely not.
Do you consider LuLaRoe a network in the network marketing industry?
Not specifically, no.
Does LuLaRoe hire outside accountants?
Yes.
Which company or who are the accountants?
Again, I don't know the name of the firm, but we have audited financials
And do those audits occur? How frequently do those audits occur?
annually.
I'm going to run through some names that I've seen in the documents, and hopefully you can tell me who they are. Who is Citric and Company, based in Los Angeles?
No idea.
Hudsloan Enterprises?
Sloan Enterprises was a company that that LuLaRoe organized to manufacture. Early on in our development, we actually manufactured some of our own clothing.
So was it a subsidiary?
I'm not sure how the structure was,
But
quite
it-
honestly. I don't remember if it was owned by LLR or if it was owned somewhere else. Not sure.
But its only client was LuLaRoe.
Yes.
Okay. And what time frame did it exist or perform this manufacturing function?
Again, to the best of my recollection, mid to late 2015, probably for a 6 to 8 month period.
When it was started, was it intended to be a short-term existence?
I don't believe so,
Why did it only exist for 8 months?
because the efficiencies of manufacturing our own clothing, first of all, we couldn't scale it enough to meet our needs, and we had better options.
And earlier you mentioned that the contract with My Dyer was late 2015. Did LuLaRoe transition from HUD's loan to My Dyer?
Yes.
There's a company spelled N-U-V-E-I. Does that name mean anything to you?
No.
So we are going to start with our first document. The court reporter will stamp it for you, and at the end of the day she will hold on to them. So please do your best to keep them together. So we're starting with Exhibit 42. So Exhibit 42, in the bottom right hand, is what's called a Bates number, LLR-WA 00008931. It's marked confidential. It appears to be an email from Noel Knighton, and if I remember correctly, he's your CFO, to Michael Brady, who is another executive. And the subject is LLR. And on it are a variety of attachments. Those attachments are also included.
Okay.
I recognize that you're not on this email, but do you recognize the attachments to it?
Object is overbroad.
Yes.
And on the cover email, the attachments are listed as the LLR Articles of Incorporation, the LLR Bylaws, a trust valuation report for LLR, officer minutes, ownership of LLR, LuLaRoe, LLR 2017 annual report, LLR 2017 annual report receipt, and the LLR Articles of Incorporation. Do you see that?
Yes.
And are those the documents that are attached to this email?
Yes.
I would like to, well, let's back up for a second. This email is dated March 29th, 2017. Do you know why Mr. Knighton was emailing these documents to Mr. Brady?
Objection, lack of foundation.
No.
Was LLR considering any corporate transactions in that time frame?
Objection, vague and overbroad.
Not that I'm aware of.
For example, acquiring someone else, selling itself, going public, issuing shares, anything like that?
No.
Okay. So I'd like to move on to the IFR program at LuLaRoe.
So it's 11:15. It seems like this is a transition point. Should we
Yeah,
take a?
now would be a good time to take a break.
Okay.
Off the record, the time is 11:17 a.m.